Good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the City Council study session for Thursday, March the 17th. All of our council is here with us and present. The first item on our agenda is to review our agenda for our meeting on Monday night. Council, is there anything on there that you know right now you'd like to get some additional information on or questions we have for staff? I know there are some zoning issues and other things that likely will attract some attention. Mr. Brady, is there anything on the agenda that staff would like to present any information on?
I don't think so. I think we are still working with the Councilmember Luna and I are still working with the community on 6A, but I think we've made some progress. Is that fair?
I'm meeting with them again today.
Okay, good. So, but I think the idea is I think we explained to them we would go forward with the introduction. Is that still the plan? And then, but continue to have conversations. The introduction didn't suggest that was the finale to. There's still opportunities for more development and changes. So.
Great. So 6A is the Longbow
correct
apartment complex, and yeah, I know the neighborhood is interested, and that's for introduction on Monday. So there'll still be another meeting before we vote on that, right?
Yes, Mayor. I'm going to be meeting them today about the Longbow project. So we met with them last week with Mr. Brady, and I think we made some headway. So we'll finalize the meeting today, and then we'll see what happens.
Great. Thanks. I know another zoning-related case that's attracted some attention is the annexation out in Eastmark. And I know there's been a lot of discussion between the neighbors and the developer, and that continues to evolve, I believe.
Is that the Skybridge piece I'm talking about?
I believe so, the one where they're...
Yeah, we're good.
8A is the annexation. I know we got some emails from some of the neighbors, and there was some question as to whether or not the new development, some of the neighbors were lobbying for larger lots as opposed to more density in the housing. And I believe there's been some discussion recently and some concessions made. Is that correct?
So they're working through them. So I told them we'd allow it to move forward, but with the stipulations, I know that. I better turn this on. I know that the developers made some concessions with the neighbors on the property. So that's gonna, I think they're getting to a point where they're starting to get comfortable and happy. So, we'll allow it to continue going forward.
So help me know that, I know the annex, I think this came before us once, we approved the annexation petitions to go forward. And so now the process is it comes back to us for annexation, but also on the agenda, in addition to the annexation, is the approval of the zoning case.
Correct.
That is correct.
So this is the next vote. It will be the last and final vote.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, as long as we just make sure everybody knows that, and we have an opportunity to, if we need to take it off consent and have more discussion, then obviously that's what we'll do.
And Mayor and Council, and due to those ongoing meetings that Councilmember Thompson and the applicant has had with the neighbors, there are some revised conditions that they've added to address some of their concerns. So reducing the number of stories on some of the units adjacent to various property lines.
Sounds like good developments. Thank you.
No, and just another item, Mayor. Just
yes, sir.
If we're done with that, just to remind the council on 9A, because the requirement, this is new. We did this when we did the annual audit. You remember that we had our outside auditor had to come and make a presentation to council. Right. That'll happen again. This item that you see before you is what we refer to as a single audit. That's referring to specifically the federal dollars that we received. There's specific audit on that. That audit wasn't quite ready when we brought the other audit because the federal government was still providing the guidelines and the direction on that. So, but that will happen again now. And so this is just the audit. And is Irma here? No, but single audit is specifically on the federal funds. Is that correct? So it's just the federal funding. So she'll have to come up and make a presentation to council on Monday also. Okay.
And it was an unremarkable audit, and the federal government believes that we're handling those funds correctly.
Well, our third-party auditors do. I'm not speaking on behalf of the federal government because that's a whole nother animal.
Good. Council, any other items on Monday's agenda? I'll note that under awards and recognitions, and I'm sure Mr. Luna was already going to talk about this, but Mr. Luna and I picked up a nice piece of hardware for the city in Washington, D.C. a couple of days ago that we'll be sharing with those who deserve the recognition. Mr. Luna, why don't you tease what's going to happen Monday night a little bit?
Sure, we were honored by the National League of Cities, and we received the Diversity Award for cities over 500,000. And we submitted our Dia de los Muertos celebration, which, of course, Cindy and Mandy Tripoli and our group of volunteers do an amazing job. And if you attended this past year, we had over 30,000 people. And so it's a great celebration, and we were very, very fortunate to get that wonderful recognition from the National League of Cities.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So we're in a beautiful award, so we're looking forward to sharing that on Monday night. All right, Council, anything else on Monday's meeting you want to discuss? All right, then moving on to our agenda for this meeting, item 2A is an update on the future development of the 25 acres of city-owned land at the southwest corner of University Drive and Mesa Drive. At some point, we're going to come up with an amazing name for this project, right? To replace a name that needs to be replaced. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Jeff McVeigh, Manager of Downtown Transformation. And with me this morning is the Canadian invasion of Lindsay Shuby from Gamage and Burnham and Ben Ayers from Gensler. And we're here to give you an update on our progress with Transform 17. Not that anybody on in this room needs to have this context, but for the audience outside, just to give us an idea of where we're looking at. It's the 27 acres of city-owned land that's at the southwest corner of University Mesa Drive. It's been in city ownership now for going on 30 years, and hopefully we're going to come up with a project that's going to work for redevelopment. Up to this date, we have come to council back in April of last year, and we had approved a memorandum of understanding that also included an exclusive dealings agreement for 9 months. During that 9 months, Mira Vista and Gensler have completed all the tasks required of the MOU. However, we are not at the point where we can bring forward a development agreement and purchase agreement because we have determined that it's best for us to run this project concurrently with the zoning, planning and zoning entitlements. Now, before we go into some of those details about the actual development agreement and what we've got to so far, I'd like to be able to hand over to Lindsay and Ben to actually give you an overview of where they've gotten to with the development concept itself.
Perfect, Jeff. Thank you so much. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Lindsay Shuby with Gamage and Burnham. Thanks so much for having us this morning. So it's interesting, and Mary, you started with a new name. We are going to present a new name, and it is going to be incredible. But we're not here right now. We don't have it yet. It's interesting, when I was not part of the Transform 17 process, a lot of you were, either as residents or as a member of council or as staff. And it's interesting, I don't think as we have started our community engagement and speaking with members of council, there was no firm consensus of what the development proposal should be coming out of Transform 17, at least none that we can think of. However, I will say that no matter who we speak to, the guiding principles that did come out of it still stand true today. Vibrant and active, right? Something that's mixed use, that has energy, that adds to the already thriving and getting better by the day downtown. Good neighbor. I think context is very important when we look at this site. You look at interesting parts of either downtown Phoenix, Scottsdale, Chandler. As you develop, you have to be a good neighbor. You have to take in the context of the existing environment that you're coming into. While we want to complement and be exciting everything, we want to make sure we're visually a good neighbor for our neighbors. A varied district. You're going to see when Ben gets into our development plan, we have a mixed-use development that we're really excited to share with you. Strengthen the downtown. Without question, and I think even from where Transform 17 started, you now have even more. Between studios, ASU, the Civic Plaza, Mesa Center for the Arts has been there and continues to thrive. I think all of the restaurant and commercial opportunities along Main Street. and just all the growing commercial opportunities. We want to build on that. Publicly accessible. We have this great amenity in light rail. We want to continue to be able to support that with what we're doing here on our site, and complementary. Again, we don't want to take away from anything. We want to add. That is our goal with this development. Next slide, please. So what have we done so far? We made our formal submittal to planning on February 28th. I will tell you, planning staff has been awesome. We're having a really great relationship there, going back and forth and trying to come up with the best document to bring forward for you guys. We've had 2 neighborhood meetings so far with specific neighborhoods, Mesa Grande and Washington Escobedo, that are the most impacted. That we've gone once. That will not be our only. We plan to go back to the communities that are most impacted multiple times. We've had multiple stakeholder meetings with other important members of the Mesa community, as we know this is something of civic importance, and multiple meetings planned. But as far as the public engagement, this is kind of kicking us off. Like I said, we have just submitted our rezone case. This is the beginning of the process. We have 2 public meetings coming up. You can see there on your screen. Monday, April 14th will be a virtual meeting, and Thursday, April 7th will be in person. Those neighborhood notification lists neighborhood notification lists. We've got neighborhood notification lists. We've included everyone who participated in Transform 17, as well as all the neighborhood groups and all the normal notification when you go out X number of feet from the site. Those notification letters will go out at the end of the week. I want to make sure everyone understands, though, especially members of the public, the virtual meeting and the in-person meeting will share the exact same information. So you're welcome to attend both. If you're a public meeting junkie and you just like to come to all of them, please do. But we will not share different information. So in this time that we're in terms of what feels good for you, whether it's an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting, you will get the exact same information. And like I said, with Gamage Burnham, you can find my name on the World Wide Web, and we encourage as many opportunities to work with the public as possible as we kick off this process. Pass it over to Ben.
Mayor, Council, good morning. Ben Ayers with Gensler. Very excited to be talking with you about this today. So what you're looking at here is kind of a first blush kind of look at the master plan concept for the development. And really with this, it was really important for us to develop a true mixed-use project that was complementary to the surrounding context and robust enough to spur excitement and to help the downtown grow into the future that we all want it to be. And so really to help Mesa grow into the future, we wanted to kind of build on the history, the culture, everything that's around Site 17, and really strive to be a good neighbor to all of those communities that we're working with throughout this process. So looking at this, you're gonna see that the 27 acres are subdivided into 8 separate development blocks. And this was important because after this initial phase, the remaining blocks have the flexibility to be developed in partnership with you, as opportunities arise, as the market dictates, or as conversations and things happen along the way. So the flexibility of that order will be determined as we go. And really the city has the opportunity to control that process for the most part. I just lost my screen. There we go. So next slide, please. So looking at this in a 3-dimensional form, you can look at this and see that this is kind of the massing idea for the development itself. This is not architecture. This is just the massing. So we look forward to kind of working with you and working with the community to kind of develop that as we move further into the process. But you can look at this and see the colors that represent the different types of uses that will be happening within Site 17. The turquoise color represents residential uses in a variety of typologies. These include townhomes, apartments, walk-ups, and live-work units. And really this variety was important for us because we wish to create a vibrant, inclusive, and varied districts that promotes community within itself and within the surrounding communities. The blue color indicates employment opportunities, and really this is a new multi-phased office building and parking garage. The pink color denotes community-oriented commercial uses that will support both the new development and the surrounding neighborhoods as well. You can go to the next one. So the initial development phase includes the following that's shown in this graphic that we've kind of highlighted for you to kind of look at. It includes 2 development blocks. the south and the west. The south development block, it comprises 44 dwelling units with townhouse design aesthetics. So kind of 2 to 3 story townhouses that will support and live on the southern, basically, portion of the development itself. And these 44 units will be designed for sale, quote unquote, standards that will include garages and be self-parked as well. We've placed these along the south there because we thought that was important to kind of become more of a connection to the neighborhood to the south as well. The west development block, which is what you see on that left-hand side of the screen there, has 2 residential styles with approximately 375 dwelling units. On the west, those kind of 6 buildings that you see form a rectangle, those are 280 units that will be designed with 3 and 4 story masses, but they live on a parking podium. So parking will be below, the podium itself will be amenitized for the residents, and then the masses live above that with the apartments. The 3 buildings that are on the right-hand side along Hibbert, however, are going to actually come off of the podium, and they come down and basically sit along Hibbert. And that was important for us because we want those kind of walk-up style apartments to have a direct pedestrian connection to Hibbert, which is a really significant main north-south, connection as we go down to the south and Main Street. And really we wanted to do that because we believe that that kind of contributes to a vibrant kind of streetscape experience for pedestrians and for the users in the community itself. And next slide. As part of the initial development phase, the streetscapes along Hibbert and 2nd Street will be improved to enhance the connections to the south and to the historic residential district, as well as back to Main Street and the connection that we talked about with, or Lindsay talked about with light rail and those types of uses. These streetscapes will include safe pedestrian and bicycle friendly spaces, street parking, and desert appropriate landscape and hardscape spaces as well. A connected network of shaded areas provide comfortable outdoor spaces so people will be able to even move around comfortably in the summer. As part of the overall master plan, we've abandoned Wilbur in this, as you can see, which is it's off the screen, but right through the middle of that block on the right-hand side. And we did this to kind of create a more flexible, significant portion in the middle of the site to help us to basically kind of provide the type of development that we want to have. We've also are seeking to abandon half of the underutilized right-of-way along Pasadena between 2nd and 3rd on the far left-hand side of the plan that you see there. And this is to create more width for the west development block. Along the southern portion of this, you see along 2nd Street, this is a very wide right-of-way, and we saw this as a little bit of an advantage. And so we'll be converting this to a new streetscape that includes safe travel lanes, parking, and a new outdoor amenity space for the community as well. This linear park will be designed with input from the community and will provide a variety of landscape areas and really become the beginning of a network of connected outdoor spaces throughout the development. These will be designed to support active and passive uses for the surrounding neighbors, and we really are excited about that connection and how that can start to help kind of connect to the southern historic neighborhood, or the historic neighborhood to the south of us. All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so while a lot of progress has been made, there is still quite a bit of progress to be made. And I think I didn't do a good job as I was introducing. I think it's important to note that Brad Wild and Neil Calfee are in the audience with Mira Vista and all the work that has been accomplished up to this point. With the formal submittal made to planning at the end of last month, our next step is the MOU actually had a sunset of 9 months. So the first step is that with council's direction, we'd like to extend the MOU to allow our agreement to continue through the term that we are looking at to get to late August for council action on the development agreement, purchase agreement, and all the zoning entitlements. Developer will continue to engage with the neighborhood throughout this time. And as you said, Mayor, create a project branding. That is important to us as well. We'd like to be able to put to rest 17 as a number for a while. While Ben is presenting the master plan, there is a lot to finalize. There is a lot of neighborhood outreach to do, so there could be, changes yet to be made, and we will continue to bring back and update council along the way. Once we have a finalized master plan, it is developers' responsibility to show us they have the financial commitments necessary to be able to pull off the first phase. And then hopefully on August 29th, That's our date. We've picked a date, August 29th. We'll be back in front of council with all of the zoning entitlements, all of the development agreement and the purchase agreement to be able to move on to that first phase of development. Now, leading up to that is to give you an overview of the high level of the business terms that we're looking at for that development agreement and the purchase agreement. So currently, we would treat each development block as an individual sale of property from the city, and each would be sold at the appraised value. Each development block would contain minimums for height, square footage, or number of units. They would also include requirements for enhanced streetscapes that would be attached to an adjacent development block. So with each development block, there would be streetscape improvements that happen. The developer, of course, will use all City of Mesa utilities, and they'll be responsible for whatever utility upgrade infrastructure costs that come with the project. Like we learned with our other projects in downtown, this project on city land will benefit from the opening of an escrow agreement in which a certain amount of money is put in there to restore the site should the project not move forward. We would value each of those by development block and be able to have that escrow agreement be flexible to the size of the development that we're working with. From a timing perspective, the first initial phase with the south and west development block would be required to commence construction within a year of council's action on the development agreement and complete construction within 2 years of their commencement. For future development on the subsequent development blocks would require the developer to show that they are successful on the previous development block and that they had financial commitments to move forward, as well as having building permits in hand. On the city side of the equation, the city would be committing to taking the purchase price, 75% of the purchase price of each development block, placing that into an escrow account itself that can be used as reimbursement for the enhanced public improvements like the streetscapes and the linear park along 2nd Street. The city would be committing, committing to the abandonment of Wilbur, portions of Pasadena, and portions of 2nd Street. We'd also be committing to customized review schedules through the building permit review. Per state statute, we would be providing impact fee offsets. These are for the development that previously occurred on the site, the single-family homes, and that we would give consideration for a GIPLET for individual development blocks, if it makes sense. And with that, Mayor and Council, we are happy to discuss and hear your recommendations.
Great, thank you. I'm sure we do have some discussion. Great presentation. Thank you for the work that led us to this point. Council, questions or comments on this presentation? Mr. Thompson.
I guess I'll start us off. Office space, so the office market hasn't really come back yet. Do you see that coming back anytime within the next 5 to 10 years? Because we do have office on here, and I'm concerned that if office doesn't get built, that it'll suddenly turn into residential. That's the first question.
Good question, Mayor, Councilman Thompson. Great question. I'm someone who goes to the office all the time still. So I think there's still going to be an office market. I like working with my colleagues and being in an office space. This will not be built to spec. So we will not leave you with 100,000 square feet of office downtown without anyone being in there. We have some very interesting opportunities in terms of potential tenants. We took a field trip to New York to look at a potential tenant. We've got a lot of opportunities. I think the tenant that you would have down here would be different. It would be a different tenant, for example, than you would get up at Riverview or that you would get in downtown Phoenix. I think part of what they would want is maybe the relationship with ASU, the relationship with the city, the residential opportunities that will be on this site, as well as the opportunity for the light rail. So you are not going to be left with a spec office building, I can tell you that, and we are working on tenants because this will be. We will have to find a specific user for this to make sense. We hope there is, but if it's not, then you'll come back with an amendment to the development plan.
I think my second, maybe not so much a question versus a statement is, from a city that thrives on sales tax, I would love to see more commercial use there, more of an entertainment type block per se. versus just a bunch of residential. When when you stack beehives of residential up, you have to have the commercial to offset that, the retail. And there's not a whole lot of square footage of retail there to match that. And so I would expect to see, some better entertainment, shopping, because obviously people that live in this area are going to want to have some type of shopping nearby, whether it's a Safeway or a Fry's or something of that nature, as well as restaurants, decent restaurants, not fast food restaurants or drive-through restaurants, but decent sit-down type restaurants and things like that.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Luna?
Thank you, Lindsay, Jeff, thank you. Now, in terms of the residential, is it market rate, you're gonna have, tell me about that. Can you be more specific? Is any provisions for low-income housing? Is it going to be a variety? So what are you looking at as far as that kind of development?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Luna, that's another great question. Right now, we're looking at mostly market rate. That's kind of the direction mostly that we've heard from a majority of the council members and the community meetings that we've had. But there is no set program for this at all. We've absolutely heard from the vice mayor starting right from the beginning that she likes the diversity of housing options on one site. And that's one of the goals she has for her district and for downtown Mesa. So we've heard that. That said, we've also heard that we only want market rate. I joke that this is like the Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears. Too hot, too cold. So we're trying to find that just right. We're not locked into anything right now. If that's something that's important to council, we'd love that direction. But we'll talk to the community and see what opportunities are available.
One more, I like the idea of having, and Jeff knows this, a downtown grocery store. Is that something that would be part of this? Are you looking at trying to entice downtown grocer in that area?
Mayor, Councilman, Ben, how many square feet do we have?
We have about 30,000 square feet currently planned. I think we're planning it for a variety of anything that could come in. We would love to see that as well. And if the opportunity arises, I think the team itself would love to have that. So we've kind of planned for bringing in all types of different commercial uses. But there's a variety of, I think, 4 buildings with different square footages to provide.
Yeah, the northeast corner of the site, we do have approximately 10 or 12,000 square feet that would be great for a neighborhood grocer. So we would love to attract that use. And then I think what Ben said at the beginning, the nice thing about these development blocks, you notice that as opposed to us saying phases, they can all develop themselves. They'll all park, they'll all have the retention. So if there is an opportunity that economic development has or anyone, we'd love to look at it. So we would love a neighborhood grocer too, but no commitment to that. It's going to see.
Okay.
And while I agree with Lindsay that this is kind of like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the only thing that we had true consensus on throughout all of our neighborhood opportunities was a grocery store.
We'll try.
Yeah, that's the hope.
And I noticed that the parking takes a lot of space. Is that because that's required? Is the zoning issue, or is that?
Yes. Yes, all really we kind of planned, as Lindsay just said, each development block kind of parks itself. Some things have more parking requirements than other. It's, I think, important to remember too, when you're looking at the development plan, this is kind of the full vision. For example, the office building, that's 200,000 square feet of office. That has a significant parking requirement that goes along with it. And that's why there's a parking garage in the middle of the development block there you see in the center. In the meantime, as this grows, we'll be kind of adapting. There'll be plenty of options, plenty of places to park as we kind of move through it. But yes, I think we've tried to do as best job as we can to kind of create a vibrant kind of urban landscape that doesn't showcase that too much. We try to make sure that it's provided but not super obvious.
And there'll be provisions for charging stations, I'm assuming?
Of course.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Mayor, Councilmember Luma, to kind of drill down a little bit into some of the details that we're looking at, that parking garage isn't just going to be simply a parking garage. It's going to be wrapped on the west side with live work units on the east side by commercial. It'll have solar on the rooftop. It will be designed in a way that it can be converted to actual livable space or occupiable space, because we don't know down the road how vehicles are going to be used. So it is with the intent that parking structure, hopefully it has a multiple lives. Thanks.
I know that, okay. I have a few things to say, but I don't want to interrupt, but yes, Ms. Spilsbury.
Oh, I just want to thank you for this and acknowledge how difficult this is, because I see the Facebook posts and there's not a consensus. There's just not. And so it's a challenge and a struggle to try to make everyone happy and to figure out what the best thing is for this site. And so I think this is a good stab at it. I think I do appreciate that you're going to do more neighborhood outreach, although I think you're just going to come up with 10 more ideas, right? I mean, it's hard, it's difficult, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for this. I don't have super strong opinions either way, like some of my colleagues do, but I love the idea that you've put the opportunity in for a grocery store. I like all the different mixed uses of housing, and so I think you're headed in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Freeman.
So, Jeff, how many years have we been working on this now?
Me personally, or in city in general? I mean,
You personally, because it's kind of progressed to where now we're at the phase where we're going to do a development agreement.
you know, Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, we've been actively working on this as a city probably for 30 years. Since we had light rail and the Central Main Plan and form-based code, though, we've taken a more proactive approach. And 2 years ago, we actually, as a city, hired an outside consultant to help us come up with a master development concept that we used as a way to help select our development partner for this. So it's been a solid 3 years that we have been proactively working on this most
But
recently.
we've had multiple development agreement, or developers, and that we've chosen, and then they've just fallen through. So this is at least the third round since I've been here.
Yeah. And I say that so the public knows that this has been a long, drawn-out process, even to get to this point. To develop this land that was, probably used some eminent domain back in the day, developed some controversy and things for the neighborhood and the area. But with that said, one of my other questions, Jeff, are there any encumbrances on the appraised land that might reduce the cost of a parcel that you know of? I mean,
Councilmember Freeman, we are not aware of any encumbrances. We ran into that on one of our other projects a couple of years ago, and it
Right.
caused a little bit of a wrinkle. This is given its nature as it was all single-family homes in the past. When we purchased it, we went through all the environmental assessments, so I'm not aware of any encumbrances. The developer, as part of that initial MOU phase as well, had to go through and do all their initial phase one assessments as well as all their environmental assessments. I don't believe that they found anything of concern either.
okay, good. Having known that this is going to come forth today, and I kidnapped the development service director, and we went on a road trip. And Nan and I, we looked at a lot of different buildings in our community that starts with a G, and then one that starts with a P, and looked at some of the building types and integrating, the building heights and material and integrating between the historic neighborhoods. And I found it quite enlightening, and so I've always challenged you to go a little bit bigger and better. I want that on the record, because I'm of the opinion that you as a developer can do a little larger and better even in the first phase, and I know density is important to you. And I hope you're willing to take that risk, because I see other cities having developers reach in and build really fantastic buildings, and this is a 25-acre block that eventually will be built out either by you or somebody else, but we want to make sure it's robust. I think this is an acre in this community. I'm thankful to our pioneers who laid out our streets nice and wide, and this area can anchor our downtown area and utilization of the light rail and other, walkability. We were in DC this last week, and it was cold, but we were walking, and we walked probably 2, 3, 4 blocks, and people are willing to do that as long as the right amenities are in the right place and they're willing to walk, and that conserves carbon footprint type thing. So with that, I just see a lot of larger buildings built in neighborhoods, and I hope that you take that in consideration. The other thing, I appreciate the renewable energy. I think that you need to incorporate that. I challenged you at the beginning. Renewables are important to incorporate on any of our development and building projects. It shows how good you are as a steward of what we have available, because some things might not be available all the time. But with that, that's probably my comments in general, and as well as the neighborhood meetings. I attended one that there was a lot of input there from the neighborhood. So listen to them, and we'll come back with a better, maybe a little upgrade to the master plan. So my thing is build bigger and higher and put some more units in there. Thanks.
Mayor and Councilmember Freeman, I think it's important to note through the zoning process, we're trying to make this flexible from an intensity and height perspective, so that while the development agreement is going to have minimum heights, we are making it easy to go and exceed those minimum heights. It will be a major amendment to any of these to go below a minimum height. It'll be a minor amendment or administrative amendment to go above.
Okay, so is this form-based, all of this building?
This
or is this going to go through?
This site actually is not within the form-based code. It was so large that we couldn't necessarily apply transects. So we are going through a rezoning under using the existing base zoning, but with a PAD overlay that is incorporating the elements of the form-based code, as well as there'll be design guidelines and pattern books that will be attached, so that we'll have a good sense of, from an architectural perspective, the direction as well.
So will this go to like design review board and then
Planning and zoning board
and through the
design.
whole process and not through administrative, all of it?
Yep.
And you talked about GIPLET. How would this qualify for GIPLET?
Individual development blocks would be, well, we would have to go through our independent economic benefits analysis to make sure it would qualify from a state statute perspective. But given the amount of public improvements, there's a significant amount of public benefit that we could see that would make it qualify, we think would make it qualify for a GIPLET.
Okay, thanks. That's all the questions, Mayor.
Well, a comment and a question on the good neighbor point that you make on, and leading to Mr. Councilmember Freeman's, on the physical and the visual character. I know downtown has a really unique and mix of historic and newish with the new developments. So the taking that into account, how so it's not as the whole just modern buildings, but it adds that character to what the downtown, I think, has as an important aspect to think about how that the aesthetics play into the neighborhoods up to the north, where the Washington and Escobedo neighborhood, and down to the south as you get into light rail. I think that's an important aspect to as far as design is going to be important. And then the other, my question on these individual phases on blocks, is it the idea to mix in, not just that we build all the housing at first, but to mix in between offices as well, so that we get a mix into the multi-year process of development? I think that's going to be an important aspect, so that I think residents just don't see housing at first and, what happened to the office. I think if we have the phases that includes office, or, the hope of a grocery store, or those kinds of things, mixed together, not just housing at first, is going to be important. But that's more of a question comment piece, but.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Heredia, that's our goal. I would think in an ideal world, you start with the first phase of residential, and then you move up into office. Again, if it works on some of our tenants that we're chasing, but we also don't want to leave you with vacant office. So that's what's so great about these development blocks, is that when there's an option available to us, or an opportunity available to us, we're ready to move.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, can I also point out something that maybe we need to have this conversation, because I think from a staff perspective, from a planning perspective, from the very onset for the last, couple of decades, as we've looked at this site, we've always thought of this site as a support and complement in strengthening downtown, right? The idea is we didn't want this to compete with what's already downtown, right? We weren't going to support putting in another Mesa Art Center or a museum. The idea was downtowns to be successful need to have that residential vibe, that 24-hour vibe, not just during the week, workday. So obviously there's still some things that aren't downtown that could go out there with the grocery store, but there is a point where the idea is we want some level of density of residential with the idea, and we've talked to the development here, and I wish we could spend more time on this, maybe we could do it in a future presentation, is working hard on the connections between this site and downtown. Because I've committed that as a city, we need to work to help figure out how to make those stronger connections through pedestrian ways or the landscaping or whatever, right? Because to be successful, this is not going to be successful, frankly, it can't be an insular development that stands alone. It will not be, it'll be an underachiever. If it's something that can sustain itself with some of the grocery, but also thrives on this idea that it has proximity. We talk about light rail, that's great. To me, you have proximity to museums, art centers, restaurants, entertainment, whatever, libraries. I mean, to me, that's the selling point of the site, right, is the connection to downtown. So I guess we want to be careful how far what's the mix of uses? I think the residential, obviously. I think office is fine to a point, but then after that, grocery makes sense, but then there's some things we want them to be looking to come downtown for, if that makes sense. So that's how the premise has been for the very beginning. So I just kind of throw that out there, reminder of kind of what the mindset, I guess, that we're working on with this. Thank you.
And to Mr. Brady's point, when we look at a lot of the commercial, including in addition to the grocery, we're looking at things like neighborhood serving commercial or service retail that isn't necessarily available in downtown, that's going to be available to this development as well as the broader downtown. We're also having interesting conversations. We're having another one in a couple weeks about potentially autonomous shuttle that could be used here to help get people through and in around downtown as well. So that we're looking at the micro transit options to be able to help with that connectivity as well.
You're done, Frank? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for all the work that you have been doing for a long time on this project and engaging so many partners. And I know going forward we'll continue that work. So thank you for your cooperation. I know it's been a huge amount of work, and I think we're making great progress. Regardless of the long history we have, I think we're at a point in making that true transformation of Site 17. One of the things I wanted to point out, like Mr. Brady had mentioned, is Hibbert being a key connection all the way down to Main Street. And I love all the landscaping and such that you're doing on these streets. But I also wanted to make the call to the city as far as what improvements can we do south of 2nd Street to make that connection, because it's barren right now, and I know there's some private property in there, but we need to look at that as far as our future work, so that makes a strong connection to make it very walkable, bikeable, enjoyable.
Second Street.
Centennial.
Centennial, sorry. Both.
Oh, okay, and Centennial. And Centennial. And I also just wanted to make a comment for anybody listening out there that these drawings here are, the buildings are just blocks for placement. They're placemakers. Do not pay attention to thinking this is the architectural detail. We're not there yet. This is just kind of the master planning for the lot, and architecture will be presented later. I love the mixed use, and along with mixed use, I think we should have mixed income. I know I've said this many times, of having affordable and market and luxury all in one development, looking for those opportunities certainly looking at a GIPLET also provides some opportunity to do some affordable work on that. And also affordable does pay respect to the housing that was there in the beginning. I also want to point out on the south side of the development, on this particular slide that you have up, there's a strip of green. And this is like a wide parkway, right? And I just want everybody, the public, to know, this is like I think it's kind of similar to the 2nd Street we have to the west, right? Where I don't know if it's going to be grass, because we are trying to get away from grass and looking into lower demand of water, but a park area, a strip that you can enjoy, taking the dog, throwing the ball, taking the kids. And I think that is also the inviting portion for the rest of the community too, just to want to be there. So we have the townhomes on the south side. Great. I think that's the right housing for along 2nd Street. However, I will put out a call for them to be for sale units. We don't have enough for sale units. I know there's some contractor issues as far as the state puts out there. Doesn't make it attractive, but again, I'll make a call for a lot of people asking for sale units in the area. We don't have anything other than our historic neighborhoods. On Pasadena, near 2nd Street or 3rd Place, that one area that you're looking to eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
Have you met with the Delta Marriott, or will you, making sure, because that backs up to the part it affects, and it might be an opportunity for them and having engagement instead of a wall.
Yep.
Regarding the office space, yes, we've talked about it many times, I know with you, but for the public,
That's what I figured.
Oh, good.
My watch just hit the
Wow.
table, sorry.
That aspirationally, we'd love to have that being a space for an incubation space for entrepreneurship. We looked at the New Lab model in New York as ideas of what can be possible. Of course, we can't guarantee everything, but the aspirational idea is using this space to tie in to opportunities through ASU, our small business development services that we're having in the studios, and making this a place where small businesses can begin. And that's the aspiration for using the space. So we're not looking at it just not to be in a static office space. We're looking at it to be an engaging office space. And I do like that you're incorporating the renewable energy. I'll put a call out to sustainable materials being LEED built or equivalent, and making a standard of our commitment to our climate action plan and what we're doing to offset any emissions. I think that's about it. I look forward to going forward.
Thank you. I think, I don't know who it was that said everything's been said, but not everybody said it, but that's the scenario here. So here's my takeaway. It's interesting. I have been sitting in this room talking about this piece of property since the 1990s. And so it's very much a personal goal for me to see something happen here before I exit this room. And so this is exciting that we have that opportunity. I think with time, sometimes oddly, what's obvious becomes clear, and so I think the fact that this has taken a while might ultimately end up being a strength. What's kind of become clear to me over all these years is that and other people smarter than me have figured this out earlier, and including everyone on this council, but what downtown needs is people. And this is a wonderful opportunity to create a new neighborhood in our old downtown. This is a significant piece of property, and so again, it's like, how often do you get a square block, or plus, in your historic downtown to create a new neighborhood? So this is a wonderful opportunity. And again, I'm not the best at creating names, but I think somehow if we include the word neighborhood in the project going forward, that might help send the message that we're looking for to create a great place like Eastmark, like the Grove, like places that people want to live, a desirable neighborhood that has got all these amenities baked into it, like the proximity to downtown, the proximity being part of an innovation district, all of these amazing, things that are baked into this location are very desirable. So I think this could be one of the places that people won't say, I live in Mesa, or I live in West Mesa, or I live downtown. They'll say, I live in fill-in-the-blank neighborhood, because that's going to be a very desirable place to be. So we need people, we need residential. I think that's true to what this piece of property always has been. Diversity in residential is important, and I would just point out that market rate would bring diversity, because across the street we have Escobedo, down the street we have El Rancho. We've talked about the fact that we are very committed to affordable housing projects and LIHTC housing projects, but they don't all have to be in the same part of town. And the diversity that's lacking in this part of town is market rate or above market rate. For sale, there's a lot of people that are itching to write a check, big checks, to be in this part of town and close to these amenities. But when I say that, I hope no one misconstrues that as a lack of commitment to affordable housing in the appropriate location. And to Mr. Freeman's point, I agree, density and massing is important, but as I look at the renderings here, that's a pretty dense project. And if we actually are building 5, 6, 7, 8-story buildings, that's in my mind, density is very much present there. Also, I'm very much okay with the changes you're proposing to the streets. I think as you drive that project right now, what becomes apparent is there's plenty of asphalt here. We don't need, this much asphalt. So, the changes to Wilbur and Pasadena and the Second Street Greenbelt, I think are all great ideas, and I endorse that. So in addition to it, focusing on residential, the other point, again, to observe the obvious, it has now become clear, is that this is adjacent to, not adjacent to, this needs to be part of our downtown innovation district. And again, to Mr. Brady's point, this is close to downtown. This is not downtown. This is close to downtown. And so it needs to be walkable, and it needs to be a complementary to downtown. But we don't need to create an entertainment district here that competes and detracts from the entertainment district in downtown. The people who live here will live there because they want to be adjacent to the entertainment district. We don't want a new competing establishments. And so I guess that's my takeaway, but the only caveat that I would just ask us to all remember is we don't want Facebook to plan this property. That's not, that's not a healthy place for anyone to spend very much time at all. But it's certainly not a healthy place for us to think that that's where we're going to do, smart city planning. So absolutely, we need to continue to engage the community, but we can't, put our finger in the air and just take a public opinion poll and decide what's going to happen here. That's why, to get to Jeff's point, that's why we're doing this incrementally. That's why we're approving it before we sell the property. We're not just going to have somebody write us a check and wish them well, on this critical piece of our downtown. So having said that, I'm very encouraged and excited, but I'm very anxious to see a shovel go on the ground. So let's the schedule that you've suggested is one I endorse, and I'm looking forward to August 29th. And shortly thereafter, putting a shovel in the dirt there. So this was not an action item. This was just for you to update us. We appreciate it. We'll look forward to the wonderful name that this project's going to have in the near future. And in all sincerity, thank you to to everyone who's been involved in your patience with us and with this process, because this is not just another piece of dirt. This is a very significant strategic piece of dirt in our downtown. So thanks for working so hard on it.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you good? Want to do a 5-minute break? Do you want to keep going?
Let's keep going.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's keep going. Let's plow ahead.
I just-
All right, thank you, though, for worrying about us. The next item on our agenda is item 2B. This is a presentation to provide direction on the city's recently awarded grant from the Federal Transit Administration to support transit-oriented land use studies along a proposed 5-mile streetcar route in West Mesa, connecting the Riverview Marketplace, the Asian District, and the Fiesta District, and downtown. I gave that long introduction to allow you guys time to come up and get settled.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Mayor, if Kevin Christopher is ever absent, I think you could fill in for him when you're no longer on council. You did very well.
Thank you.
My name is Jody Sorrell. I'm the Transit Services Director for the city, and with me up here is Rachel Prelog, the Deputy Planning Director, or the Assistant Planning Director, and Jay O'Donnell, the Deputy Director in Economic Development. About a year ago, we submitted to the Federal Transit Administration a transit-oriented development planning grant application, and we were fortunate enough earlier this year to find out we were fully awarded our full ask from the FTA. So we're here this morning just to share with you what's in that grant and how this will benefit the city in the long term.
So Mayor, can we pause just a second here? She used the word fortunate. We're fortunate to have this team who put together that competitive proposal. And when they brought it to me, we were submitting, I'm like, you guys, there's no way we're getting all this. It'd be, so hopefully we can get half of it or whatever. So this is amazing that we're here today to say, we got the whole enchilada, I guess. So I just want to, first of all, recognize the team that put together the application, the proposal that was awarded this significant grant. So now we're here to tell you about it, but I don't want us to pass without recognizing their work, so.
Right, so biggest FTA planning grant in the country, so thank you, congratulations.
It was second biggest.
All right, well, let's say it's the biggest.
Biggest in Arizona?
Biggest in Arizona.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
So just to set the baseline for everybody and remind everybody, a quick refresher. About 4 years ago, we started 2 different planning projects looking at high-capacity transit corridors in West Mesa. The first one of them, we partnered with the city of Tempe and Valley Metro to look at the feasibility of extending streetcar from its end of the line in Tempe and Dobson into Mesa and what that would look like if it was realistic to do that. The second one was looking at high-capacity transit options for the Fiesta District. About 18 months ago, we came and shared with you the findings of both that and both those studies. And what's shown here is the corridor for high-capacity transit streetcar. And I should say, when I say high-capacity transit, it could be streetcar, light rail, or BRT, bus rapid transit. So extending the streetcar from Tempe into Mesa is feasible. We have a corridor in West Mesa that's Rio Salado, Dobson, Southern, and then Country Club up to Main Street as the ideal long-term vision. I think the important thing to remember with these projects is these are really long-term projects, because some people might be asking, why are we doing this grant now? These projects take a long time, and on the screen now is when we did the Central Mesa Light Rail extension into downtown. That was 8 years from when we started planning to when we had the big celebration in front of MAC on that very, very hot day. And then Gilbert Road extension was another 8 years, and those were projects that just fell into place perfectly. Tempe streetcar has been a long-term project. Things haven't always fallen into place. So this can be a decades-long project. And so planning now, putting that effort in now to put some of that planning in will help us in the criteria if we do apply for a capital improvement grant with FTA, because one of the ranking criteria is land use and economic development potential. So we will already have put the effort in and hopefully been seeing some fruits of this planning grant take place when we do that.
Morning, Mayor, Council. So as Jody was mentioning, about a year ago, we were approached by Valley Metro, and they really recommended and thought that our streetcar route was a great project to apply for this grant. And so we did so, and I just want to kind of give you a background on what the purpose of the grant is. So this is not to fund actual infrastructure for the transit line, but this is an opportunity to do comprehensive planning that supports transit-oriented development along the proposed streetcar line. And with this grant, the purpose of it is really to support economic development along that transit line, to increase ridership, to increase multimodal connectivity and accessibility, improve transit access for bicycles and peds. Of course, inherent with TOD is usually mixed-use development, so increasing the density and the mixture of uses near these transit stations. But then there's also, as part of the grant's purpose, was a social equity kind of component about how do you provide opportunity and access for various populations to access transit into these other services. So I was mentioned, we are very excited and want to, maybe take a moment to brag a little bit that, this was a competitive grant, and we were very fortunate to be awarded the full amount that we asked for. So we were awarded $920,000. So that was the second highest award nationwide. So it was a nationwide, competitive grant. So the city does have a 20% match. That is about $230,000. That's going to be coming out of a transit savings fund, I guess. I'd let Jody explain that more. But what that does, that it allows us to do this planning for the 5-mile streetcar corridor. Right now there are 11 proposed stops. Obviously that could change in the future when we actually get down to planning the actual transit infrastructure. But the study area encompasses a half-mile on each side of the corridor. And what's great about this line is there's so many opportunities here. It connects several major activity centers. So it's going to be connecting Mesa Riverview, going through the Asian district, going down to the Fiesta district, and eventually downtown. But as well as those activity centers, this also transects several of our redevelopment areas. So there is a lot of opportunity there to use these funds to do further planning there.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Nice to be with you today. Jay O'Donnell, Assistant Economic Development Director. I wanted to just expand a little bit on the RDAs and the good news about implementing this planning grant right now. We already have some really strong framework because we've established Mesa's redevelopment areas, and economic development was the lead on that particular process. Most of you may recall that we established a redevelopment area in the downtown square mile. We've had one since 1999. And then in 2017, we expanded the central business district and established the 3 new redevelopment areas, which you can see on the screen, 2 of those. So we still have the town center and then the southwest, west, and east. And as part of that process, council adopted the new individual redevelopment area plans. September 2017 was the southwest, and then October of 2018 was the east and west areas. So the benefits of having RDAs really is to access certain federal funds that are available for enhancing neighborhoods and business districts. Some of the activities include renovation for buildings, new construction, and neighborhood amenities. So it basically lifts our scores or crosses one of the check boxes when we're applying for federal funds. And then additionally, as Jeff McVeigh was talking about, GPLET is also available in the RDAs. So in each of the Mesa RDA plans, there are specific goals and recommendations that are unique to those areas, but there are also overarching strategies that can be implemented across all of the RDAs. And included in these plans are recommendations for capitalizing on the existing assets that are there, areas for improving connectivity for pedestrians, bicycles, and public transit, and then very basic concepts for potential redevelopment sites. So using this foundation to build upon with this planning grant is ideal. We don't need to start from scratch. So the general plan update is also beginning, and we can integrate those efforts around this process. But having these tools already in place will enable us to do some deeper work along this streetcar corridor and implement some of the recommendations that were made in the RDA plans.
So as we're describing, there's a lot of opportunities with this grant. So one is, of course, the main purpose of it to conduct the detailed planning and create the vision for the area surrounding the transit route. But as Jay was just mentioning, it allows us to implement a lot of the strategies and be able to fund a lot of those strategies through the 3 RDAs that are already established. This also provides us a lot of opportunities for economic development along the transit lines to conduct some branding and marketing of these special areas. It allows us to study, market, and partner on and catalyst sites. And then also, as Jody was mentioning at the beginning, this really helps to leverage future grants for the actual infrastructure. So there are certain criteria within those applications that these deliverables will be able to directly address to kind of higher our qualifications for that. So as part of the grant application, we had to identify certain tasks and deliverables. And there were 5 that were proposed within our grant application. So the first one is a community profile and existing conditions analysis. So this is looking at the surrounding area, not only from the aspect of land use and zoning, but also looking at the infrastructure of those surrounding neighborhoods and looking at the actual transportation network and how we can improve those networks to provide connectivity to these future transit lines. And another deliverable is the public engagement plan and also an implementation mitigation plan so that when we actually begin construction of this transit route, we have plans and we've already engaged with the neighborhoods on ways to mitigate the impacts to those surrounding businesses and residents. The third task here is developing a corridor vision. So developing station and area typologies and creating visualizations and prototypical plans for areas adjacent to the corridor. And to go into a little bit more detail on what this means, so of course we want to establish an overall vision for the corridor, but we also recognize that this route, it travels through several diverse areas, and the land use and the zoning along that route varies greatly from very, heavily residential to commercial areas. So when we develop our concepts and designs for these stations, we want to take into account the surrounding character and create different typologies of what's appropriate for those areas and what's appropriate for those special areas such as Asian District versus Fiesta District, and creating those typologies. But then we also have the opportunity to create those visualizations and prototypical plans for the corridor. We already have certain sites that were identified through the RDAs as potential redevelopment sites. So this is an opportunity to take those efforts further to develop actual prototypical plans or a set of kind of form books of what the city would like to see there, that then potentially developers might be able to take those and kind of streamline any sort of entitlement process if they're adhering to these standards and to these forms that the city has set. So continuing on with the tasks and deliverables, the next one is creating TOD policy plans. So we would be creating comprehensive design guidelines for the 4 activity areas. So we already do have some design guidelines for the Fiesta District, but building on that would be creating design guidelines for the Asian District, the Riverview area, and just kind of defining those areas further as far as form and design. Also with this, we would be exploring a TOD overlay zone that would address land use, densities, and how to create that urban form along the transit line, because there will need to be some deviations above what the standard allowances are in the zoning code and per the zoning districts. And then finally, having a financial plan and investment strategies. So with this task, we would be identifying potential funding sources. We'd be further studying the development strategies for the RDA redevelopment sites, exploring private-public partnerships to fund transit supportive infrastructure, conducting those market forecasts of the area, and developing marketing plans for each one of these areas. And finally, identifying how we can attract businesses and retain businesses in this area. So this is, fairly new. We found out just beginning of the year that we were awarded this. But as staff, we have been meeting and discussing next steps here and strategies to move forward. So some of the next steps we have here is first, we're going to be hiring a new staff member to act as a project manager for this. We know this is going to be a multi-year project that's going to require a lot of coordination with several departments. We have a core team here that would be working to kind of direct those efforts, but of course we have our own responsibilities and day-to-day duties that we have to attend to. So this person would really be able to coordinate with staff and also with the consultant that we would be hiring to conduct a lot of this work. So hiring that staff person, next would be writing the scope of work to procure a consultant, and then finally procuring the consultant or consultants. Likely there might be some sub-consultants under that main consultant. So that is the end of our presentation. Be happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Freeman.
I'll be the first. Thank you for the presentation. What was the largest award? You pricked my interest.
Oh, no.
Who beat us?
Come on, Jody.
I can't remember what the amount was, but I think it went to MARTA in Atlanta. I think it was just slightly, I think it was like, ours was 920, I think theirs was like 960 maybe. Yeah, it was very close.
Okay, so we were close.
Yeah.
I really like this. I think it goes through districts 3 and 4 primarily, right, between your two districts. So this will be a great interface and connectivity. And the fact that it transects the RDAs, I'm really thankful that it does that. And it might leverage some momentum there at Fiesta Mall, maybe some rehab, redo in the future. And what are your time stamps? I mean, when would this be, okay, we're hiring the consultant and then producing the scope and building it? I mean, how many years are you looking down the road, right?
Oh, like from now until actually building a corridor, building a project? Oh, well, part of that depends on a sales tax extension passing, but.
The Prop 400.
Prop 400,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
But it's on the list, right? It's
I
on the
want to know
list.
if I'm going to be alive or dead.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes,
That's
you
it.
will be. We're looking probably from now, if everything goes forward, now to opening 2035.
2035. He wonders that every morning.
And then my last question is, can you, sorry, David, stop it. So you can produce this study and scope of work for $920,000. Are we going to have to chip in any more money, or will the grant cover everything?
Well, you heard, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a local match of 230,000 on
Correct.
top of the 920.
So it's somewhere.
So it's $1.1 million.
We'll do what we can with that, and then, we'll use that. That becomes a very important foundation when we are once we complete that, right, and we're going through the next rounds and developing further our interest and applying for the programs with FTA and others, and using the leverage from the regional dollars and FTA to get the actual, rail or the streetcar here. That'll be about part of time, because even the timing, I can't remember what years it's in, the timing for streetcar and the regional funding.
2030, 2035.
Yeah, so that's where it's already budgeted or allocated, maybe a better word. It's in the MAG proposed funding at those levels, or at those times. Now, in the past, because we've done on other projects like State Route 24 and others, where we've done some of the planning and we've accelerated the design, because other projects may fall out because they're not ready to go, sometimes we've been able to accelerate that. But, so this is good news for us that we have a significant amount of dollars to do some of this planning and design, which is a significant, I don't call it a criteria, but it's certainly, is it a criteria?
It is.
Yeah,
In the
okay.
FTA, when you apply for a capital improvement grant with the FTA, they rate you on some various criteria.
Ratings, helps with that.
Land use, economic development is one, increasing mobility is another, cost, efficiency, those kind of things. And how you rate determines how strong your proposal is how you rate. And then that determines your competitiveness for funding. So this puts us in a much better competitive position, leveraging our local $230,000 for possibly tens of millions of dollars down the road.
Thank you.
Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. Jody, is this similar to what Tucson has? As far
The streetcar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've been on it. It's very successful. I think it goes from the University of Arizona down 4th Avenue into the downtown area, into the historic neighborhoods of the Tucson area.
Right.
And I mean, it's like to capacity. So I think this is a great idea. Congratulations to you. This is wonderful. We had an opportunity to see Secretary Buttigieg, and so that was really exciting for me. And then having this is double exciting. So thank you so much. I can hardly wait. I don't know if I'll see it either. But anyway, I'm looking forward, if I'm kicking still. I'm looking forward.
All of us will be invited back to the ribbon cutting. We all may not be here, but we'll come back.
All righty, well, thank you so much.
I'll be there.
Yeah, you and Frank.
It's got depressing all of a sudden.
Should be a fun topic here. It's exciting. Well, I think on the slide on the tasks and deliverables, the 3 points there are important points to ensure that we look at, right, as far as the community profile and what already is there, how do we complement moving forward. The public engagement plan and the mitigation plan for our small businesses along that corridor is very important, as we've seen other light rail and other developments around the valley cause both good and bad, right, as far as infrastructure, how long it takes. And so identifying those potential potholes and challenges and how do we work through those is going to be an important process for us to have as we look forward with this. And then the corridor vision, this, as you laid out, it goes through various different areas, including the Riverview, which, has its struggles, but it's hopefully in the future will continue to build up there. The Asian District, where it's becoming a vibrant place to be in West Mesa, and then our Fiesta District, where and along as a future, downtown, right? But the Fiesta District, as we look at developing the Fiesta Mall as an anchor there, this is a critical components to our West Mesa area, right? So this is an exciting piece. I think we want to reiterate, looking at streetcar is a little different than the rail piece that we have along Main Street, right? There's some similar infrastructure, but is not as you look in Tempe, you have some, the infrastructure kind of lives on the street, and so there's significant different types of infrastructure compared to
They share
rail,
lanes with
right?
the
They share
vehicles,
lanes,
yeah.
so increases different challenges, but it's a different type of infrastructure than the rail that goes along Main Street here and down in Mesa. And so that's something to make sure that people are aware as we look at developing this. So I'm excited about this grant and how as we look at the future, we need to interplay, our West Mesa and downtown functions to what our neighbors to the west, like Tempe and Phoenix, have, and bring those residents, bring those individuals to West Mesa to shop and entertainment options and to live here. And so that's going to be a critical component and how it interplays with the region. This is a great, I think, project to do that. And I think we're also very well positioned as being not only included in the Prop 400 extension, hopefully it passes later this year, but also this project is one of the only kind of East Valley potential rail projects in the future. There's others more Phoenix and West Valley centric. So this is something that we can really leverage and get additional dollars, federal dollars to support construction in the future. So just those are my comments.
Thank you. Other comments? Vice Mayor?
I'm very excited about this. I think it's absolutely phenomenal and really pulling together our whole West Mesa and making it transit-oriented, which we need to do with the explosive growth we're experiencing now with more density. This is the way to move our traffic. And I'm especially excited along Country Club because that is our SR 87. I got the right. And so it's very, very busy, and it's very busy also with pedestrian and bicyclists and stuff. So now we have an alternative means for people to traverse along Country Club without all these driveways and the bus. Anyway, I think it's going to be much safer and really improve the economic development opportunities and being a great place to live instead of kind of a scary place to drive or walk. About the streetcar, can you explain or describe a little bit more for the public of what it looks like? It shares a lane, so we're not going to have that dedicated lane. What kind of infrastructure it means to our streets?
So a streetcar is something that's kind of in between. It's a little smaller than a light rail vehicle, and it's a little bigger than a bus. But it operates just one car at a time. You won't see multiple cars linked together. And then it does kind of operate like a bus. It does share lanes with the traffic, unlike light rail, which is in its fixed guideway. It can operate in the middle of the street. It can operate curbside, depending on how that design works out. It is in rail, so it is fixed. It's not gonna, like a bus, we can reroute on a moment's notice. We won't be able to do that with light rail. And it doesn't necessarily have the heavy infrastructure that comes along with building a light rail system. But we still have a long way to go getting to this. And preview for my budget presentation, there's a budget request to do work with Tempe to do a study where we'll have a lot of public involvement for the public to give us feedback on what this alignment might look like, start with, yeah.
And this is operated by Valley Metro.
It's operated by Valley Metro Rail, yes.
Right.
And we'll have an advantage in that I think the Tempe streetcars should be opening shortly. And so we can really see, we'll have an advantage to be able to see how that operates as we're going through this planning process. So we can again look at the best parts of what happened and look at what we could improve to make it better in Mesa.
Yeah. So how long do you think the study time will take? Does that take a year, more, a couple of years?
The grant study?
Yeah.
We're probably looking at about 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years for the study? Okay. Okay. Then I know we have a country club intersection redo coming up, and I don't know if there's any coordinated look at what we need to do there. I'm just bringing it up because it's something I have on my radar of things that are changing.
No, if you're gonna have light rail going through that intersection, that's something we need to think about, yeah.
Yeah.
Or not light rail,
Streetcar.
streetcar, sorry. We used to talk about light rail.
used to talk about it,
Light
yeah.
rail going through there.
And then one last question on slide number 2. There are some yellow lines on the bottom, on the top 2. It says future connections. What are?
So when we did the feasibility study with Tempe, it looked at for lack of a better phrase, a streetcar system, what a streetcar build-out would look like. So those yellow lines are, a lot of those yellow lines in Tempe are alignments that would work, that came out of that study for Tempe that we just took off the map because it became very busy for our purposes. So those are corridors that could be future streetcar connections down the line if we so chose to do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
I
Ms.
just have a
Pillsbury.
quick question. Do streetcars run both directions?
Yes.
So that route would like stop and then come back the other way?
Yes, just real similar to like on Main Street, how, you know, you go to Gilbert Road, the light rail ends, and then there's a layover, and then it turns
The
back
driver
and goes the other way.
walks to the other end.
Yeah, walks to the other end of the train and
That's
goes back
what
down.
I was wondering. So
Yeah.
it's just a back and forth
Yes.
type of thing. Okay. It's a lot bigger than I guess I was thinking when you said it's, you know, bigger than a bus but smaller than a light rail. I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Yeah.
you can't really tell with that picture. But okay. So, yeah, I think this is exciting and I would just love it to move faster and see what we can do. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, I'll just say amen to what has been said previously. I actually enjoy bringing up this topic of political lifespans and the fact that we're planting trees here that, you know, our children and grandchildren will be sitting under. That I think we have been the beneficiaries of those who have gone before us, our predecessors that made the wise decision, Mayor Hawker's council, to bring light rail into Mesa in the first place, and then Mayor Smith and that council that made the decision to actually fund it coming into.
And extend it all, keep going, yeah.
We are fortunate that we get to, you know, go to the ribbon cuttings and receive all the accolades of the good things that are happening that are tied to, you know, had they not made those decisions, we wouldn't be in the place we are now. So I think this is our opportunity to pay it forward a little bit and set this up as the streetcar, I think is a great technology. I don't want to say it's better than light rail, but man, that's really great technology. And I also want to, the Proposition 400 extension is as we speak, you know, in the legislature. The Senate approved it yesterday. The House is voting on it here in the next day or two to put it on the ballot. So if you've got, you know, we need to continue to lobby our legislators, but just so you know, during that negotiation at the regional level, you know, certain parts of the valley said, well, we won't buy off or sign off on this unless we get something that we can take home to our constituents. And this was what Mesa held out for. We wanted to have this, you know, the opportunity to expand streetcar into the Fiesta District. And so that was a fought for, negotiated for part of the plan. So let's do all we can to get Prop 400 extension approved so that this planning can ultimately lead to something. So thank you, ladies, for your hard work on this. It's a wonderful, wonderful future for our city, revitalizing a great part of town. All right, thank you very much. We'll proceed on with our agenda now. Item 3 is to acknowledge receipts of minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Freeman and Ms. Pillsbury. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Item 4 is the current event and conferences attended. I know there's probably a lot to talk about here. Mr. Luna?
Yeah, most of us attended the National League of Cities, and I participated in the Information Technology Committee and talked about issues as it relates to FCC and putting broadband within our community. So that was really exciting. Also was appointed to the Advisory Council for the National League of Cities, and also attended the HELO meeting, the Hispanic Elected Local Officials, and I was honored by that group for my service as chair of HELO, and got to see a lot of, we went to see President Biden presented to the group. That was exciting, and we got to meet Transportation Buttigieg, and we got to see our senators, and they made a presentation to us. So it was a very active meeting. It was very engaging, and it was nice to be back in Washington, D.C. to see many of my colleagues that I've worked with over the past 9 years on the National League of Cities, as well as working with my current colleagues. So it was a good meeting. So I appreciate having attended that to represent the city of Mesa.
Thank you. Who would, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'll just, I was also at the National League of Cities, and I do want to mention that as council members, Luna's last trip to the National League of Cities, and he's played a significant role in a number of different, from the executive board, advisory boards that he's on now, President of Hilo, and many other things and he has been really a true champion for Mesa in serving at a national level. He will be missed. He has many connections there, and I think we all need to take it upon ourselves to try to fill his big shoes that he's left in his service to the National League. As far as other things that I did last week before we left for DC, I attended a Maricopa Associated Governments what is it? I can tell I'm a little tired right now. But the Health, Human Services and Community Initiatives Committee, thank you. And we met with other Valley cities. We talked about homelessness, of course. One thing I thought was interesting is the Surprise mentioned that their homelessness has doubled over the last year. And they attributed it to most of their city is single-family housing. They have very little multifamily, and so 83% of their residents are cost-burdened, which means 50% or more of their income is going to pay for housing. I know we're waiting for our point-in-time numbers for Mesa, but I know it's a significant increase, as well as all the other cities are reporting as well, and we're working on how we can work together regionally. Also attended the Smart Growth America Champions Institute. Among 12 council members across the United States, we presented our projects that we're all doing in Complete Streets. Complete Streets is looking how we're using it for active transportation. And I presented a protected bike lane along Extension Road, and working with that in the transportation department. It was just presented at the Transportation Advisory Board, the Mesa, our advisory board, and that will be coming around and hopefully built this summer. There'll be some public engagement next month so that we can talk about what that looks like. It'll be a nice connection from Southern all the way up to our light rail and up University. I don't know how much we'll get in one thing, but having a north-south connection to the light rail and providing that safe access instead of Alma School and Country Club, which are very difficult to have safe biking and walking. So look forward to that, and that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Pillsbury.
I got to attend my very first in-person NLC conference. It was a great experience. Did a lot of what has already been mentioned, but I got to attend the FAIR Committee, which is Finance Administration and Intergovernmental Relations, and also the Youth Education and Family Council. And so those were two meetings I attended that I really enjoyed, and I have some good takeaways to bring back to the city. So I'll be talking with some of you. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, this is Kevin's last time too, right?
Yes.
Going to NLC,
that's
so
right.
David and Kevin are retiring,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
sorry about that, Kevin.
Appreciate traveling with them, learned a lot. With the, I want to thank Mr. Butler. He was an excellent quarterback for all of us. With the flexibility of Tom Brady, he had actually, our flight was canceled 2 hours before our flight. I called Scott, you know, we're being canceled. No. So he got us a flight over to DC, and appreciated that. And he was our concierge the whole time. I was impressed by how much everybody knew him and how much he knew all about our lobbying issues and federal and city and state. So valuable asset, Mr. Brady. We need to keep him there. So just
He's always more valuable when he's out of town.
good point. You know, I can't argue with that because
You took care of us.
it was very good. So with that, I attended my Public Safety Committee meeting, and we talked about what we were doing that way for our mental health and in our dispatch centers, and it was well received, and impressed other cities were doing as well. And Tucson is one, as well as Tempe and Phoenix. So we're one of the leaders in the forefront, so thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Other comments? All right. I won't rehearse what everyone said, but yeah, I think we did have brought some valuable lessons and some good connections home with us from Washington, D.C. Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future meetings look like?
See you on Monday.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the agenda items. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Luna and Mr. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.